I think the main thing I would like everyone to take away from this is there's no linear path to this thing at all. You're never going to hear the same story twice. And to say you're interested in film is a blanket way to sum up thousands of potential career tracks and approaches. The trick is finding out, as Joey was saying, what you're passionate about and using that skill set to lift up those around you, right? So I feel like we're kind of in a gray area here. Because there's kind of two different conversations I feel like you're wanting to have. One is the industry itself and kind of creating, like finding a way to make a living, and then, which is a very different thing from producing a particular project you want to make and the things you want to say, and financing. There's a lot of ways to come at this. But I think where I'll start is just a little bit about my story and how I got into it. And then we'll kind of go from there and see how you guys want to guide it. But I am I'm a director, producer. I do a lot of commercials and music videos. I made a number of short films, web series that have taken me around the Western world. Before that, I was a camera assistant, digital imaging technician for a number of years, reality TV, indie features, you name it. How I got started, I studied production in the UK in 2009, I think, going on every set that would have me, production assistant, getting people coffee, holding the boom mic. It was a put me in coach kind of mentality. Because I really didn't have much of I had shot my own stuff growing up, pretty much since like the 7th grade. And I knew that this was all I wanted to do. But as far as like the nuts and bolts of how to do it correctly, I was totally naive. So I was just hungry to get into a professional environment and just see what it was about. And so I did that as much as I could. And then when I came back and wanted to use what I had learned to produce my own film, I met Joey and was adopted into his Convergent Media program, which was huge for me because he gave me the freedom to explore the craft, think critically about the why and how and the world that I was actually creating stuff in, which is funny because I look back on that time and you actually had me give a talk. I guess it was in 2011, about making my first film. And I went on and on about how you no longer need millions of dollars to make a movie, without really understanding the weight of what I was saying, since hundreds of thousands of people across the country were coming to the same conclusion. We were all about to disrupt the whole industry all at the same time. I was so excited back then, but somehow I did not quite have the foresight to really see the impact that, of what was to come. It took off so fast, but so yeah, after school, I actually worked at the Alamo Drafthouse as a projectionist. Eventually got with the creative team there and produced on-screen advertising for them. That led to having enough pull to organize local film showcases, where I was able to reach out to the people making and selling feature films in town. And with the weight of the Alamo movie theater behind me, I could get them in the building and chat them up and sell myself as someone who could work for them. And eventually one of them gave me a job as a data wrangler. That's just someone who comes on set and makes sure all the files coming out of the camera are backed up and saved. And I didn't screw it up. So that led to 2 more features, which led to me kind of making my way up in the camera department. Started doing, more commercial stuff. It got me in the system. I just positioned myself where I was willing to do the gritty technical stuff no one else wanted to do and make sure I did it really, really well. Didn't always turn out that way, but that was the goal, right? I was hungry. I was even doing wedding videos. I was I was attacking from all angles to try and make a nest egg for myself and get into this thing because indie features in Texas, yeah, money is a joke. It's a joke. If your goal there is to work and make money, commercials pay way better. But in 2017, I think, yeah, UIW was looking for a University Incarnate Word, alma mater, was looking for a producer to do a documentary series about women religious. And my name came up because a professor that advised me when I was there. And I had just started dipping my toes into making proposals and budgets, selling projects because I had been in the environment enough. I'd already been in the environment now for a few years. So I knew what day rates were in Texas. I knew who I would want to call for specific jobs, how long things take. And so I put together a proposal for the gig. I got the gig. And that was really the beginning of me going in full time and producing full time and quitting all the other hustles. And so, yeah, so I was doing commercials. I was doing that project, and things were going very well. So all of a sudden, I started approaching 30, and 30 years old, and I went, oh wow, it's time to get back in the creative game, because that was the point at the beginning of this thing. And so I produced, wrote, and directed a short film, the right way, in my opinion. To this point in my career, I've been all about paying my dues. I never wanted to jump in too far over my head and put other people's time in jeopardy who needed to rely on me to make the projects worth it. So, so that's why it was so important to me to work my way up the rung. And if I was going to put myself in a position where I wanted to ask someone else on set to do something, I wanted to understand their job at an intimate level so I could really understand what I was asking people to accomplish. And so that's so definitely, even at this point, I still, instead of going all in on doing a full length feature for not enough money, I preferred to do a few shorts with a professional approach, where everyone was making their day rates and we had great equipment and all that kind of thing. So, and that project actually led to more creative commercial opportunities and the music video stuff. And so now I'm kind of starting, after all these years, I'm starting to swim in the environment that I set out to a decade ago. It's taken a while. And so, I'm actually only just now starting to migrate towards LA. That's going to open up a whole other can of worms. We'll see what happens. I often ask myself if I would have, if it would have sped things up if I had gone to LA earlier and dove in, but it's so easy to get swallowed up by that monster. I like to think, I'm going into that arena now with the confidence I have, is probably way better. But it's going to be, it's going to be different for everyone and specific to what you want to accomplish, either as a storyteller or someone who wants to work in the industry. A lot of that's going to take trial and error, seeing what you fall in love with. The track you're on as a writer is different than a cinematographer, right? They're very different schools of thought. They're a whole different club. They never really cross paths ever. But they are parallel to each other. And any job in the industry relies almost exclusively on the people in the community taking a chance on you and you not being a dick. You're a dick once and it's really hard to get anybody to call you back. If there's if there's one particular story you want to tell and you want to direct it and you just need to get that out of your system, I highly recommend getting independently wealthy another way and financing it yourself, and not playing the game from that angle, especially these days, right? And so yeah, so that's kind of my journey to where I am now. So to say that I have made a living as an independent filmmaker in Texas, no, absolutely not. There is no independent film industry in Texas. It doesn't exist. There are TV shows constantly being filmed here. Reality television kills it, but independent filmmaking as a way to sustain yourself is gone. Those days are done. They never really existed to begin with. It's a it's a pipe dream without, I mean, unless you want to go to LA. It's really the gap has not been bridged yet. So
I mean, I would interject that I think one of the things about it is that the independent films that get made in places like Texas or right to work states in general typically are passion projects. They're projects that someone starts with a large amount of money and makes it like a literal independent film.
yeah.
Makes it because they love making films, and they do pay people to work on the films.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a traditional Hollywood model where they're necessarily even making it to sell to Netflix or Hulu. It's like literally and this was one of the things I wanted to bring up, is that it has made a space for people to be able to do that, though. When you talked about the digital revolution, is that like before, with 35 millimeter film or even 16 millimeter film, you could kind of have quasi passion projects, and they could be something, but like your passion project can be seen by hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very different than even 10 years ago or 20 years ago, let alone 50 years ago.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's that's the point I'm trying to make, is
Yeah.
that what I'm saying is not a deterrent from doing your
Yeah.
passion project. If anything, this is the greatest time in in the history of the film industry in the last 100+ years to create your own art. Like, and in just about every city in America, you're going to find professionals who are, and people who are hungry for this kind of stuff, and great collaborators. And so if you have something specific you want to say, now's the time to do it. Right.
So how did you like you said that you kind of realized you wanted to make films once you were making enough to make money doing filmmaking for commercials and for music videos and for weddings and bar mitzvahs, I don't know. Like how did you kind of delineate those two so that you felt like you really were once you decided to dip your toes in both, how did you find a balance? Because I think that's something that is also like a big intangible, whether it's like going to make an analogy for students here, right? Whether it's like going to school and doing all the coursework that you're supposed to be doing and making your film, how did you find that balance between doing your commercial work and then also finding the time to do your
it's
film?
tough. It's really tough. But that's the path, it's right in there in the title, right? The passion has to be there. It's got to be something that you want to do with all your free time. And this year, when you're in the industry anyway, after a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks of 12-hour days, it's hard to get excited to go home and it's like, all right, time to work on my script. But that's, you just have to want it that bad. I mean, I wish it was more complicated. I wish there was like a magic bullet for that whole thing. But as far as genres of film that I'm the most interested in, I just love thrillers and things with tension and ticking clocks. I play with genre a lot in my own personal work, but I always love coming back to the bomb strapped underneath the table that the audience finds out about later. And so yeah, so I've played with psychological horror and sci-fi now. And I have a crime drama TV pilot that I'm about to start trying to pitch when I go to LA next, and trying to get all these things off the ground. But they that's kind of where my passions are at. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I have one more question, and that's it, I promise.
Oh, no.
More
How
the
do you,
merrier.
I'm just curious, like, how do you think that, and I think you kind of alluded to it during your introduction, but I was curious, like, how do you think social media has really changed the landscape of film and narrative? Like, that's a question that I ask my students too when I interact with them and stuff. And so I'm just curious because social media has like changed the game for so many things, and especially with things like TikTok, that there's it's so like consumable now, and things like YouTube. So in your opinion, how do you think it's really changed the game for filmmaking and narrative and storytelling?
So in what way in specific? Do you just mean in general? Are you saying
Yeah.
maybe we're moving away from traditional narrative structures? And I
One,
I
I was gonna say one of the practical things that I would go off of that on, that like is a big delineation for me is you know, traditionally when you make short films, like the not knee jerk, but the quick thing you typically used to do was like this was going to be for a circuit, right? For film circuits, and you make your film is for film circuits, and you're going to go and you're going to shop it at all these film festivals. And so you don't show it, like you don't put it out into the public, you don't show your wares. Like even with Tanya, like when Tanya came last Tuesday, people were like, "Are we going to stream this?" I'm like, "No, we're not. We can't show our work. Like, she's just going to submit this to festivals, and it's a whole thing." And with social media, I've noticed that some people are putting out their pieces just flat out online, and then some are keeping it close to the circuit, as I would say. Like I don't know if that's an actual saying, but like
One that comes to mind is Lights Out, that very short film that was just a YouTube video, and then it was spread across the internet and turned to GIFs because there was like just
yeah,
the
he made
concept
a
of the
career.
monster in the shadows, and then the monster itself was turned into multiple different GIFs, and it was spread across the internet, and then it eventually became its full-on film. So
Yeah, and it exploded. So that goes back to the no linear approach to making this thing happen, right?
and the other
I
side is that I know you've done like both ways, or you've actually repackaged many times.
So it comes once again. It comes back to what you hope to accomplish. The festival circuit as a way to really sell your film and get into the Hollywood market, and get it. It can work, but for such a small percentage of films, does that actually happen for anyone? Where festivals are so huge and have been so huge for me is basically you're getting invited to some of the best networking events on the planet. So if your film gets into some of these bigger festivals, it's time to go to work. It's time to go to these places where filmmakers are congregating and hand out business cards, meet these people, and get in their lives. And that's the biggest, most effective way you can use a festival circuit. Other than that, laurels look pretty on your but festivals are expensive. It's and maybe you get into 50% of the ones that yeah, absolutely. But 50% of the things you submit to, and some of them are $60 a piece to submit to. But it the after as far as short films are concerned, no one's ever made their money back on a short film that I'm aware of, except unless it made their career, like the Lights Out guy, right?
yeah.
But what it can do is you get into a really big festival, and then the next day you put it online, and those laurels are on there, and people click on it, and that helps you. And then you got to be ready with the next thing you jettison into the next thing. as a proof of concept as well. If you're wanting to make a feature, shorts are a great way to do that. And so, but to get back to the original question, mostly social media and all that has just opened it wide up. I mean, I think about even television now. Getting into the realm of television there used to be these very particular structures. If you were going to get into it as a writer, the 30-minute, the 30-minute serial, the hour long, that was kind of it. And now with Netflix is greenlighting these mini series and there's this new kind of 45 minute realm where things are hanging out. And really there's no, all those constraints are kind of drifting away. And so I think it's a really exciting time to be a storyteller. I look at something like VR. VR is about to blow the fuck up. Like it is. I mean, anybody who's tried an Oculus, the fact that they're even getting remotely affordable, and the storytelling possibilities in VR are absolutely bonkers. So even when talking about film and everything, like I in the convergent media spirit, I definitely recommend not putting yourself in a box too much. There's a lot of exciting ways to tell stories now.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I thought you might like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I didn't, well, I haven't like officially announced it, but people in our chat know this. We have a group me for our production group, but we got accepted as a panel for the Ann Arbor Film Festival, which is an Academy Award sanctioned festival that we're going to be going to in the spring. And so this is some good feedback to kind of think about, like when you're there, like to encourage my students to be like, you really do just go and talk to people. Like that's a big part of it, is that you can go and introduce yourself and meet a lot of different people that are doing projects and like you said, network.
Well, and you already have a shared interest, so you just walk up to the first person you see and find out about them, and then don't stop until you leave. I mean, that's like, if you do anything less, you are, that was money not well spent, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Very true. Now, you want to talk about kind of some? I did watch you. You were in New Mexico. Where were you?
In
film festival.
I've been at a few in the last few months.
Okay.
I was in New Mexico.
Okay.
At one point, yeah, at
I don't know.
Minefield Film Festival.
Some YouTube video where you were being questioned with a bunch of other directors.
That was probably Albuquerque. Yeah. So that was a ISO turned into Poems from the Dust, the web, turned into a web series, and we put it in that festival, and it won. It's we didn't it's interesting because it's really hard. That's a project that that started as the short film that I met Joey in school with way back in the day, and had no money, just trying to make this thing work, and kept revisiting it over the years, knew something was there, knew that it was something, and then kept kind of giving up on it, coming back, kind of retooling it, and then during COVID, I had time. I went and checked it out again and put it in this new format that was supposed to always be the goal. We were just supposed to shoot a lot more to get it there, and I used what we had to do this kind of short form web series, and it's a little tough for me to like push that one out in the world too much, just because it was such a learning process. I kind of feel like I got what I wanted out of it through that process. So I only submitted it to 2 festivals just to kind of see what's up. One of them didn't want us, and we won the other one. So I don't know. So that's I don't know what to do with that, but it was a great experience for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely, watching you go, like, it was cool hearing you talk about it and having people like so excited about your film when you posted that YouTube video, just because I knew like this was literally like your freshman project, like in terms of career, like, and it was a project that as you just said took 10 years, like literally, and on different cameras, like, did you start out on DV, or I don't know what you started out on?
Oh yeah, we started on like Sony camcorders before, and then I touched on that a little bit in that talk of how throughout that particular project you can actually visually see the transition from those camcorders to the DSLR movement, like in our, so it's like you go from one scene that's very static and controlled to us really experimenting with how we can move the camera around, because all of a sudden DSLRs were a thing and we're like, the freedom, and it was crazy.
Going off of that, I do have one like pertinent question that will ring with us a little bit, which was the Corova shoot.
I remember that.
I don't know if you remember that, but
I absolutely do.
Yes, you do.
I mean,
so to be like, because that was one. I'll maybe I'll pull up some pictures from it. But you wanted to, like, I don't, like, you talked about how you don't try to produce something you can't produce. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was definitely one of those, like, at least I felt like at the time was one of those bigger asks of a ambitious young person that actually pulled something off. You actually did it. It worked out. Well, you had an event.
So I'll say this: you got your age group right now in college. If you want scenes with big parties or big gatherings, now's the time to do it, because it gets harder to pull all those people together the older you get. It gets more expensive. Nobody wants to show up, but at your age, everybody's looking for something awesome to do, and if you put music in a room, you can fill it with people. so that was one of the biggest like blessings of that whole thing. We had a scene that took place in a nightclub, and just had a bunch of friends who were DJs, and so instead of trying to make it a closed set, we just threw a party, and I had a friend who was a bar back at this place, and he knew the owner, and they were very open to throwing a show, especially since I was going to be putting the whole thing together for them. All they needed to do was provide the venue. And so, we ended up, and so we just threw a party, let the DJs do the show. We were very fortunate that people came. And then we shot the scene in and around this thing as it took place. I mean, we had, since all these DJs were playing, they were like, "Oh yeah, we know some fire dancers. Like, you want fire dancers?" And it was like, "Yeah, we want fire dancers. Like, of course we do." And so, and since we were all on Steadicam for the whole thing, it was so easy to just move around. And I mean, we did try something with a jib that didn't work, but for the most part, we were able to get the shots we needed for the scene, and then also make a promo video for the event and for all the DJs that played and all that kind of stuff. And so that was a blast. That was very cool. And so, and I'll link all the stuff here in the chat here before we're done, and you guys can check out all this stuff I'm talking about, because I know how exciting it is to not see it and just hear me chat about it.
Actually, I think I found a photo or two of that event. Let me see here. What was interesting to me was just how you were able to, like, you really did have to pull people together. Like, it wasn't like a what's the word? It was really a bunch of different people that you had to work on to show up. It wasn't just one group. It wasn't just DJs. It was, like you said, having the crowd there. And so that's one of the things I think about when you're writing scenes and when you're writing things out, that like as a small independent filmmaker, that you really do have to think about, and you really do have to kind of figure out, is like, you know, where. Oh, here we go. I found it. Let me see. Well, because I like bring this up because so like this was the DJs that you had. Let me see if I can.
There's Philip James.
Yeah. There are the fire dancers outside in the crowd that you had. I mean, it was legit. I mean, it was. There's Than and Christian. That's from a different party. But,
I miss that weight class.
I know. That's right. That was the other thing that I think people learned in college that later on, was that if you can take a weightlifting class in college or any kind of exercise class in college, you always look back later and you're like, dang, I wish I had stuck to that doing those exercises.
I had no idea what I had. Yeah.
Until it was too late. But
well,
yeah.
And that I think that speaks to you know, I definitely don't recommend limiting yourself with this, you know, when you're writing things down on the page, but you know, when you're selecting which story to tell next and why now and that kind of thing, that is something to take into account. But it all comes back to what role you want to play and how to, you know, and how you want to go about it. Because you know, if you know, you can be introverted as a director, you can be introverted as a writer, as a producer, absolutely fucking not. You're not gonna, you know, like a producer, the whole is just really all a producer is just a really sociable person who is really excited to get something done and is willing to go out and chat with everybody and get it going. And try and track down money, which is a different kind of producer. So if your goal is to produce it top to bottom yourself, you know, that's a lot of hats. But you don't have to do it that way. It's not required unless you're in a hurry. And so that's something in the beginning, when you're just starting out, I think it is important to wear all those hats and figure it out, but figuring out what you hate quickly and then making friends who love the stuff that you're no good at. That's the secret sauce, you know, that's the secret sauce.
So we should get you a shirt that says, I love you because I hate what you do.
But I love what you do because I'm shit at it.
I love what you do because I hate what you do.
Yep.
Only I can come up with ideas like that.
I'd wear it. I'd rock that shirt.
But yeah, no, this is insightful. Do y'all have any questions, comments?
I actually have a question for you, Mr. Than. I was born and raised in San Antonio. How large of an impact has San Antonio had on you in regards to some of the short films or commercials that you've produced throughout your career, I guess?
Huge, especially in the people I've worked with. I don't think, you know, someone like Jesse Borrego, who was in our sci-fi short, who I'll link that on here. You know, I would have never had the opportunity to work with someone like him, who's a, you know, San Antonio royalty, you know, Chicano superstar. And his, you know, I got to meet him through a feature film that I worked on in 2015, where he came in late in the game and was just an amazing actor, really killed it. And then we got connected that way. And then I actually, I basically stalked him to a signing event that he did at the, what's the name of that flea market that's south on that huge flea market? Yes, Traders Village in San Antonio. Yeah, he was doing a signing there. And I just went and got in line. I was like, hey, you remember me? And he was like, oh yeah, hey, how's it going and all that. And then he made the mistake of giving me his phone number, and it was over after that. I didn't leave him alone till he was in my film. And so that, it's those kinds of relationships, they would have been different in another city, and all that kind of influence of growing up here is definitely in the bones of the stuff that I make, whether I'm even aware of it or not. So yeah.
Yeah, and they're that I'm an anthropologist and I study culture at heart, and so I always just insert myself in all these different scenes. And one of the scenes was definitely the film scene in San Antonio. I've just found totally crazy because there are characters in the scene, and I don't mean actors. I mean just people that are in it that like talk a really big game. And if you're in San Antonio, it's like you don't want to be rude to anybody because like everybody really is earnestly trying to do something for the most part. And the people that are fronting, like they get sussed out pretty quick. Everybody kind of knows who they are. And watching Than, like literally, I think you navigated pretty much everybody. You've been such an amicable person towards everybody. I've seen you. You've met pretty much everybody. I've seen Buddy Calvo and Brian Ramirez, and like, there's just like all these different characters that are doing film, like the Nations, just so many different groups that have been out there trying to make films. And one of the things I've always found interesting about watching you and your journey over the past 10 years was just how you navigated the space in San Antonio. Having gotten to work with pretty much everybody I just mentioned in some way or capacity, or have crossed paths with them, and kind of just stayed under the radar at the same time and done your thing, and kind of be like I had all these bad terms. They're like kind of just not like bad isn't mean, but like just I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say peacemaker, but it's like like you're someone that dances between spaces very well.
Well, and I mean, I guess what I'd say to that is just that even when you meet someone that you can tell personality wise, oh, this is someone that I can't really see myself working with, there you that shared interest, that passion, like if it'll make you look over a lot of stuff, because you really are all trying to, you're really all trying to capture the same lightning in a bottle, and there's, you're kind of kindred spirits on this journey. And so so you look for the good, and you try not to let the bad get in your way, and that's really all you can do, right? Especially in a medium that is so collaborative, so social, that just requires such a ridiculous amount of people to do effectively. Yeah.
Cool. Anybody else?
Let me see. Let me throw some links in there.
All right. I saw Mariah is here. That's amazing. I saw you post up. We miss you, Mariah. Mariah's in Spain.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I don't know. What time is it there? You're dedicated.
1 a.m. I'm writing a paper.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mariah and I have collaborated on a bunch of projects. I think the craziest one was our open ed conferences, the open ed jams that we threw in San Antonio, and then threw at MIT.
Yeah.
San Antonio, MIT, same thing. I mean, what's the difference? It was crazy because both of them were charming in their own way.
I like the one in San Antonio better. I tell people that when they ask, I'm like, yeah, I think MIT was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, the one in San Antonio we had at Rackspace You know, you talk about like random spaces, Dan, that like you end up making friends with to like end up using their space. Like
I had
saw
to do that as well.
you were on Kitana over off South Cross shooting, right, for your sci-fi? I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. Like my friend has a building down there. So he was like telling me there's some filmmaker here in town that's like shooting on my block, and I'm like, is this Than Niles? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And I'm like, yeah, I know that guy because it's San Antonio, man. It's 1.5 degree of separation.
Yep.
Because you did that. Was that Erica Benavides that hooked you up, or I can't
Yeah.
remember who it was? Yeah. In San
Mhm.
Antonio, just like El Paso, Anthony, everybody knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Anthony's a friend did a really cool music video. I don't know if you can link to it, Anthony. But you should throw it in there. I thought that was a really cool video. I was thinking about having him, see if we can maybe get him to talk to on.
I can totally get Jaime on, dude.
Yeah.
It's
I think you'd find it real interesting too. Well, everybody here.
because he's also a musician who is a social media entrepreneur, and he also has his own recording studio. So he's like multifaceted as well. Let me find the video and I'll put it in the
Oh
chat.
wow, is
do.
your new reel, Than, over there on the on your website? I'm gonna steal the screen and this is it, Than?
Yeah, that's the that's the fresh.
I always find it
Hold on, let
hard
me prioritize the audio too. I like to. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna start it over too.
I always find it harder to breathe when you stay close to me. It's too much. I can't help myself. I always find it harder to breathe when you stay close to me. It's too much. I can't help myself.
Dang. Wow. Hold on, let me find, where did I put the video?
Instantly better.
Okay. There we go. Wow, dude. That's intense. I want to see how, like, do we need to like invite you to come give a guest viewing or like pay you to come show your film?
I would just come. The other thing I would like
love
to
see
do.
that sci-fi film I haven't seen.
The other thing I would like to do is I'm really getting into motion capture, and I actually own a motion capture suit and have been experimenting a lot with it, and I think it would be a blast to come there and do some 3D animation on the fly. I think that would be fun.
Which brand suit?
Rococo.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's the budget friendly one, but I'm amazed at the results. It's absolutely game changing.
Well, this is awesome. Well, let's all give a round of applause to Than.